Okay, in this video, I'd like to talk about 5G, the 5 Great Lakes, and how the control system is actually operating. So let's get started. Okay, if you haven't seen my previous video, this is like a part 2 to that one, 5G and the 5 Great Lakes. Basically, at this spot in Michigan, where the Straits of Mackinac are, there is a 5-mile chunk of steel called the Mackinac Bridge that the government / military industrial complex is using as a giant antenna. This antenna is the electric avenue or the electric bridge. It's electrified by all the frequencies going through it, because radio frequency has the same fingerprint as AC high voltage. These are the transmission lines that they just got done running through my county. Radio frequency current at high frequency, there's no resistance. So it starts doing this number here, where it acts like DC with no frequency. So what they're doing is making this thing a system of control. And it's to control the people, it's to control the weather, and it's to control the UFOs that they can't keep out of the airspace in this area. So what they're doing with this whole thing is broken down by Eric Dollard. And he was actually sent to study this and figure out what the power companies were doing, because it made no sense to him the way that they're going about this. So it's all about putting this third harmonic into the system, because this is where you get into human mind control. If you put a third harmonic into the power system, you can put a carrier frequency into that third harmonic where your brain will ride onto that carrier frequency subliminally, and you can be programmed that way. So this whole 5G, 5 Great Lakes thing is just a giant electrical prison for you. And the controllers know exactly what they're doing and how to manipulate this whole thing so the whole public doesn't even know that it's going on. So it's your big electric fence. Most people won't even know that's there. So what Dollard is basically saying is that he says this has all been left out of the equations. He says that when the phone companies started putting in long-distance lines, open wire transmission lines across the country, just like they're putting up here, he said that at the carrier frequency, about 5,000% more energy was disappearing into the dielectric field than could be accounted for by the loss of the insulators. So what he's saying is that when all this energy starts running down these lines, the energy doesn't travel through the wires. It's running through the space in between those wires. So 5,000% of that is being lost into the dielectric field that they can't account for by the loss of the insulators. So the power company knows all about this phenomenon, because they've actually got a thing called the synchronous condenser motor that pulls back from the dielectric or back from counter space where it disappeared into, because that's where electricity dumps into. So that's what's going on. They're running all that AC down the line, and it's disappearing into counter space. There's major losses going on because it's dumping back into the dielectric. It's not in electromagnetism anymore. It's not in time. It's not in space. It's not in matter. It's in zero. So it's in negative. Because this would be, of course, your 0 point, your plane of inertia. Positive, negative, neutral. 369, just like Tesla says. Okay, so what Dollard says, what's happening in this transmission line situation, he says there's a leakage of magnetism, where electromagnetism, radiation, the magnetism is lost to space. And then there's a leakage of dielectricity by the process of movement through space. The energy is disappearing in the counter space. So what he's saying is that light is a transverse wave. It can only exist in a boundary condition. Like electricity, it needs a waveguide, like a telephone line or an ocean or a Great Lake. See, they're using the Great Lake as a boundary condition. They're using it as a waveguide to reflect. So that's what's happening, and he was sent to look into what the power companies were doing because what they were doing just seemed completely off. So then he gets into this whole thing with ratios and music and proportionality. He says that controllers want a chaotic, relativistic universe where there is no harmony. He says today's electricity is electromagnetism. Tesla's electricity was magnetodielectricity. It's a mirror image of electromagnetism. It's self-sustaining. He says that the earth is charged with it, causing living things to grow. That's what the orgone is. That's what my pyramids do. Same thing. It's the torsion field. The power company is switching from three-phase to three independent single-phase systems. You will lose all ground fault protection. And there will be an increase in electromagnetic pollution with harmonic interference. Delta Y conversion of the nation's power systems puts a bypass wire over the transformer. If you touch an electrical appliance, you're grounding out to the neutral wire in every appliance in the system. It used to be 1 or 2 blocks. Now, with the transformer bypassed, you're in contact with the whole towns from the substation. If you put your hand on a washing machine, you're now mechanically connected to the entire grid. Now, all are YY connected with a jumper. The whole system is now a giant antenna. Just like the Mackinac bridge. It's a giant energized antenna. The electric avenue, the electric bridge. So now there's 2 frequencies in the system, 60 cycles per second and 180 cycles per second, creating a large buzz because of harmonics. The power company is now putting up a 4th wire. Okay, so what Dollard says is that even in the desert you can observe this phenomenon where there's no power. That the whole North American continent is constantly vibrating at 60 cycles per second because everything that's plugged into an AC outlet, as far as AC motors, every one that's running right now is running at 60 cycles per second in lockstep with every other AC motor on the continent of North America. So it's all hammering the planet at 60 cycles per second, and you can hear this large buzz from that harmonic in the middle of the desert where there's nothing. He says you can still hear it out there. So this whole thing is hammering in resonance at 60 cycles per second. So this 5-mile chunk of steel over this giant reflector as a boundary condition is also hammering at 60 cycles per second. Because like I said, my friend from the cable company told me that when he drives across the Mackinac Bridge with a spectrum frequency analyzer in his car, he says the thing lights up like a Christmas tree, like nothing he's ever seen before because they're blasting so many frequencies across here. So it's like I said, radio frequency is the same fingerprint as AC high voltage. So in conjunction with all the cell phone towers that are staked in every one of these cities here, they're blasting out some major stuff. and they're just messing around and playing with the torsion field and the different effects that they can get from everything that they're putting into the system. So like I said, it's a system of control, but as far as controlling the humans, once they put if they put a third harmonic into the system, then your brain can actually ride onto that carrier wave and they can subliminally program you through mind control. So that's another update on the 5G, 5 Great Lakes of Michigan. They're hitting us hard with the weather mod here. And I'm doing my weather remodification and I ain't stopping. So check out my other videos. Thanks for watching.